Guys, it's been so long since I filmed a reading wrap-up video, but bear with me as I go through all the books I've read probably in March, April, May, and June. These are just random books I'm picking out that I think that I want to talk about and that will interest you. Now, if you guys are new to my channel, you guys would probably not know, but I am a heavy contemporary romance reader and I love my historical romances too as well. I've kind of built my channel on historical romances, but unfortunately for this video, I would not be focusing on those and I'll only be strictly focusing on contemporary romances. Now, hopefully this video will give you recommendations to add to your TBR, but then it'll also include like some misses that will help you navigate and clean up your TBR as well. Maybe I'll remove some books from your TBR, but the first book that I want to start off with to talk about is Jasmine and Jake, Rock the Boat by Sonia Laley. Sonia Laley is a South Asian author from Canada. I love her books. I always read all of her books. It's usually a hit or a miss for me, but I just love her style of writing. So I was really excited to pick up this novel about our heroine who works for a video game company. She has a really poor relationship with her parents now, and in a last-ditch effort, an attempt to kind of rebuild her relationship with her mom and her dad, she decides to self-invite herself to this family cruise that her parents are doing, and it's only there she realizes that she's only the young one on the boat aside from her childhood friend. But the problem with this book that I found was that our heroine was just extremely childish. I felt like she was just doing a lot of these things of stubbornness and she wasn't thinking from different perspectives, so it really made it hard for me to kind of cheer for her as she was presumed as the underdog. I just felt that she could have reacted to a lot of things in a better way. I felt like she made assumptions before she kind of learned who the person was, which was extremely frustrating a lot of the times and kind of took away a lot of the romance between Jasmine and Jake, because I felt that Jake was just a sweetheart overall and I think he deserved better. So I ended up giving this book a 2 out of 5 stars. I didn't really like it as much as all the other Sonia Laley books that I've read. So the next book that I read was called The Neighbor Favor by Kristina Forrest. Now, I've read Kristina Forrest books before. It's just her YA books, but I really liked her writing and I just really enjoyed it. So I wanted to dive into her adult romance novel that she published, I think maybe last year now. But this one is essentially about our heroine who works for the publishing industry and she just loves books. And one particular series that she really likes is this fantasy novel series. And it's by this author who uses a pen name and nobody really knows this like identity of this author. And she manages to contact him and they both have this like ongoing back and forth internet conversation that and slash relationship really that goes on for like many years. Well, not many years, probably goes on for like a year, where they feel very intimate with each other, where they feel like that they can share their innermost deepest thoughts with each other and they're growing more comfortable with each other and they finally build up the courage to finally meet each other. Is then where our author actually ends up ghosting her and does not reply back to any of her messages anymore and ends up just never showing up to the meetup location. She's heartbroken by it. She's crushed. She feels weird about it because it's not a real relationship, but she feels like she just got dumped, but she's moving past and she's moving onward. She is growing her career in the publishing industry and is then when she bumps into her next door neighbor who is very extremely attractive and he's kind of like, you know, on the shy side because he doesn't really talk that much about himself. And then they kind of grow and foster a relationship where they get to know each other and things like that. Hero was just described as a smoking hot man and our heroine was just, you know, in love with him because he was so good looking and he found her to be really attractive too. I felt like the chemistry was all there. I felt like the banter was there too as well. I felt that they had a lot of organic moments where they were getting to know each other on a deeper level, where they had an opportunity to fall in love. I really liked it, but the story does not really have much going on to it. But overall, I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I am looking forward to reading more Kristina Forrest novels. So the next book that I read is Just Another Love Song by Kerry Winfrey. Now, I love Kerry Winfrey. She is my auto-buy author. I really liked her books like Meeting Tom Hanks or something like that. I don't know. I just forgot all her titles. But this one is essentially a second chance romance between our heroine and hero. So our heroine and hero met when they were in high school. They were tutoring each other singer. Well, she was tutoring him because he was like the star football player and he was just kind of flunking all his courses. And then it's during the tutor sessions does she realize that he does not like football. He doesn't care for it. What he wants is to leave the small town that he grew up in and become a country star singer. And our heroine herself hates the small town, wants to go to a big city, go to college, study art, and become an artist. So they begin dating, they fall in love, they're sticking together like two peas in a pod, and they have their dreams set up for them. But life is not always what it is made out to be, and they go their separate ways. Overall, I enjoyed the story. I think the chemistry was there. I felt like the two characters got along really well with each other, and I felt the heartache between our two characters who just wanted a second chance. The thing is that there was like some elements that were missing. Like I felt that he was a single dad, but the son wasn't there always in the picture, which kind of felt weird because if it's going to be in the synopsis, I felt like the son would play a bigger role. There were some issues in the novel where I felt that our heroine was just too insecure. She just kept hamming on herself that she was not in a big state college. She like never had like the worldly experiences that he had. She is just like telling herself that she's happy in the small town, but you can tell that she like resents it a lot. So I just felt like she needed to do a lot more growing up and maybe like to see therapy or some aspects of it because she was really like focused on it, which felt really weird. But overall, I still enjoyed it, and I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. It's not my favorite Carrie Winfrey novel, but hopefully her newer novel that's coming out later this fall will be something that is my favorite. So the next book that I read is this one called The Rachel Experiment by Lisa Lynn. Now, I read Lisa Lynn earlier this year, and I don't think I talked about it, but this is her second book in her series called From Sunset Park with Love. So our heroine is just super focused on her job. She does not care about building connections within her job, and she excels at her job. But the thing is that her partners at her firm, she's like a financial analyst, and her partners at her firm sends her to a different office location down in Texas. And it's there where she has to kind of regain her social skills because she is meeting a new team. She wants to get along with people. And if it does not succeed, she is out of a job, is what her boss said. So it's there where she kind of like educates herself on social norms. And she bumps into our hero, who is a lawyer, and he is the complete opposite of her. He's outgoing, he's charming, he's sweet, and he decides that after their one night stand with each other that they're going to work together to try to get her to experience life and to kind of grow out of her shell. Now, I enjoyed this novel because I felt like that the pacing was good because there was things happening like pretty quickly. Like they meet, they have their one night stand, they meet again, they kind of like not sure what they want to do with each other, but then they become friends to lovers. And I enjoyed the aspects of like the Chinese culture as well. And I also liked how our hero was just kind of like taking no bullshit from her when she was always making up excuses. So overall, enjoyed it, but there were some parts where I just felt like it was a little bit slow sometimes too as well, like where nothing was really happening. So I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars, but Lisa Lynn is going to be an author that I'm going to be paying attention to in the upcoming months. So the next book that I read was this one, which is a young adult novel called Never Vacation with Your Ex by Emily Wibberley and Austin Broca. Now, this book does not have the highest rating on Goodreads. It has a 3.27 rating, and I was really nervous heading into this book, but I borrowed the novel from my library and it was like counting down the number of days that I had to like return it because people put it on hold, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll like read this book and I'll see how it is. So we have our heroine who is a Olympic volleyball player. Like her whole life has been dedicated to volleyball. Her mom is an Olympic athlete and she's retired now, and she used to be a volleyball player too. So volleyball is like really big in the family, and she's like really hyper focused on her sport, but she's also boy crazy. So she has this thing where she just kind of like dates a lot of guys and then she dumps them, and she never really has a long-term relationship because she's in fear. Like she just has this biggest fear of commitment. Like she doesn't want to commit. So what she ended up doing was that she ended up dating her best friend, her childhood best friend, and she dumped him. And then he still has feelings for her and she does not, because she's already moved on. She started already dating different guys. And what ends up happening is that her family is going on summer vacation, and his family is very close with her family too. So they all go on summer vacation together, and they all like rent out like this cottage where they all have to live together for a couple months in the summer, and they have to interact with each other. He is trying to get over her unsuccessfully. Like, he's very sad about it, and then she's just like, dude, grow a pair and get over me, right? So she ends up trying to help him get over her by like helping him look better, feel better, and then helping him go on dates and things like that. And it's only then does she realize that maybe she still has feelings for her ex. So it gets really messy. Now, the thing I didn't like about this book was that I felt like that the adults in this book were extremely childish. I felt like the mom of the heroine was so childish. She is weird. Like, her mom would be like, I told you not to date your best friend. Now you're ruining this relationship between the two families. Like, why did you do this? Like, you know, if you knew you were going to play with his feelings, don't do it to my best friend's family. And then halfway through, she decides to kind of go back into volleyball. And then, like, that would mean that she will compete against her own daughter. And then that was kind of like a major, like, taboo subject in the book, too, as well. I just thought the parents were very childish, and they shouldn't be parents at all if they're going to behave like that. Overall, they were still fun. It was entertaining at parts. It made me feel like I was on the beach. It made me happy. So I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. It was more closer to 2.5 out of 5 though. Okay, so the next book that I read is this one where it has P&R elements to it. It's called Mr. and Mrs. Witch by Gwenda Bond. And honestly, I really liked how this book unfolded itself. Like, it started off really interesting. It had a past and present timeline, so it kept me a lot interested. So basically, our hero and heroine meet during a heist where they both are on separate missions. So our heroine is trying to like steal a relic, and then our hero is trying to recover like the same relic. So they bump into each other in Italy, and they're running away from the police with each other, and they cover their own tracks, and then they have like this instant connection, this instant chemistry where they have a one-night stand, and then they end up falling in love with each other. And it was great. It was good until like on the day of their wedding, do they realize that they are mortal enemies? Like, he is a hunter and she is a witch. And so they can't get married anymore because the two families will never let this happen. And plus they have their own principles. So now they broke it apart, and this is like a second chance romance between these two characters. Will they be able to kind of mend their differences, you know, and fight for something? And work together, because there is this greater evil that is falling on Earth now, and they must save the planet by working together. So honestly, pretty interesting. Halfway through, like 50% of the way through, I'm very interested. I'm invested in the story, but I have a thing with journey romances, or just journey books in general, from where like our hero and heroine has to defeat this villainous character in order to have a happily ever after. I feel like I just get bored with it. So overall, gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, so the next book that I read was The Sizzle Paradox by Lily Menon, and Lily Menon is Sandia Menon, and she is the YA author, but Lily writes like the adult romances. So I've been putting this book off for a very long time now. It got released last year because this book has a 3.19 rating on Goodreads, and I was just so nervous to read this book because of the low rating, but I like Lily's writing, so I just kind of jumped into it, hopefully without like expectations. But essentially, this book is about two best friends, and they've been stuck with each other for a very long time. They go to the same school with each other, and I think they both are doing their master's degree with each other. But the thing is that they're both doing master's degrees in different focus areas. Our heroine's thesis is so freaking weird. It was very hard for me to believe that like a master degree could be built on it, that a school will accept this as a thesis. It was about how, you know, she was like talking about like the chemistry and the attraction between two people, and then how it fades or something like that if they're together for too long. I don't know. Like, it was just like a bizarre thesis, and she had the biggest trouble with falling in love with someone. So she will go on a lot of these random dates, and she'll just kind of document how it just fizzles out and it's just not great, until she realizes that the person that she really likes and the person that she has an instant connection with is her best friend. And her best friend obviously liked her. It was just very obvious. And it was just like waiting for her to kind of like open her eyes and realize this. So there was like a lot of frustrating bits to it, but then our hero didn't want to push her, didn't want to pressure her, so he will go out and date other girls. And then halfway through, like, she was helping him out with dates, and I was just like, okay, I'm done with this book. Like, this book is like really annoying now, and it's like it doesn't make sense. And I was growing increasingly frustrated with the two characters that were complete idiots, so I gave this one a 2 out of 5 stars. Okay, so the next book, I feel like it's very polarizing. I feel like a lot of people probably really like this book, but I just didn't like this book. I felt like our heroine was too grating. So it's called Thank You for Listening by Julia Wheelan, and Julia Wheelan is a narrator, but I didn't like her narrating her own book. Like, I felt like she was reading a thriller novel. Like, it didn't have any emotion behind the writing. Usually the narrator is supposed to invoke some emotion, but it felt like a thriller novel. Essentially, our heroine had a really bad accident and has left her blind in one eye. She's a narrator for audiobooks. She records strictly like, you know, fiction, fantasy novels that have no romance in it because she does not believe in love anymore because of her appearance, and she doesn't feel like that she can ever have that happily ever after. And it's only until she bumps into our hero, who is also like narrating the same romance novel as her, because the agent is giving her this contract and she has to fulfill it. So she has to, for once in her first time in a very long time, narrate a romance novel. And I don't know, I just didn't really connect with her heroine at all. I felt like it was just very depressing to go into her thoughts of how her injury has impacted her self-esteem, has impacted the way she thinks. And then once again, the narrator of this audiobook made it seem like it was a thriller, and I was like, what is going on? So ultimately, I just gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. So the next book that I read is this one that was really highly anticipated for me. Nobody talked about it, but I really wanted to read it strictly based on the cover. So this book is called The Man I Never Met by Elle Cook, and this one was a very frustrating one. And it's frustrating because these two people never meet until like the very end. So if you are not the type of person to like suffer a whole book until like they meet until the very end, then you're not gonna like this. This book is about essentially our heroine who picks up a phone call, and then the person on the other phone misdialed, and then they text each other going forward for like a whole year, and they build a relationship through phone calls and video calls and like text messages and things like that, but they have never met because they both live in different countries. Like, our heroine lives in the United Kingdom, he lives in America, and they finally make a plan to meet each other. But then something really terrible happens to our hero, trigger warning, cancer. And so he doesn't want to meet her anymore because he's become a shell of himself. And she's like desperate to kind of reconnect with him because she had this really strong connection with him. But they both lived their separate lives for a very long time. And they are trying to communicate with each other and trying to get through this very painful process. And then, yeah, that's the book. But overall, I just thought that this book was super depressing. It wasn't really as romantic as I thought it would be. I thought it would be more romantic. So I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. Will I read more Elle Cook books? Maybe if I see it, but if I don't, I'm not going to cry myself a river over it. Okay, so the next book that I read was The Reunion by Kayla Olson. Now, this one is a celebrity romance, and I don't really like celebrity romances, but I was interested in this one. It's about this cast of characters who were on this really popular like teenage sitcom, and then they're doing a revival. Is it called a revival? Like, you know, like where they trying to do like a new show based on the same characters, based on the same plotline, but like grown up version. And then like they reconnect over everything because they used to be the best of friends, and then they suddenly grew apart, and then now they have the opportunity to get to know each other. It's been a decade. It's been a very long time. Essentially, I don't know, like this book had a lot of elements to it that I really liked. I really liked how we got to see parts of it where she was acting and that she was having fun on set and then she was getting to know her friends more. But then there were other parts where I felt like it was not giving because our hero was just so sweet and was so honest and was so true to his feelings, but then she wasn't. And then that was incredibly frustrating. And then halfway through, I just got bored because it was the celebrity romances, and I don't really like celebrity romances. So I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, so I think the last book that I'm going to talk about is this one called Ruby Spencer's Whisky Year by Rochelle Bilow, and I really like this one. So save the best for last, guys. So this one involves our heroine who has failed in her career and she is just over it. So she decides to take up a job in Scotland as a chef for this like bar, this pub really. And then it's there where she realizes that she is in love with the handyman, because the handyman's really good looking. He's very charming. He's very sweet. He's really nice. And he is there to fix up like the place that she's also staying in for the very time, like in the summer. And so they get to know each other. It's a friends to lovers romance. But then there's something that's holding him back that makes him really afraid to commit. And she is over it because she does not want this flaky man in her life if he's not willing to commit. Rightfully so. So they kind of have their own like little things that they have to work out. And it's where she gains his trust. Does they really like move to the next step of the relationship? But overall, she's also feeling pretty down too as well, because she is a chef and she wants to start a cookbook, but nobody wants to buy her idea of a cookbook, and she feels like she's a failure. And then the pub that she's working at is at like, it's going to be closed down soon because the city is like, you're not really making much money of it. It's better if we just sell the land and make like a hotel or make another tourist attraction. So now she has like two things going on in her life. She's trying to convince the man that she likes and loves to love her back. She wants to start her own career as a cookbook author, and now she also has to save the pub that she's working at. So I really enjoyed it. It literally took me to Scotland. Like the way that the author described it, it made me feel like I've traveled over there, and that was what I needed at the time that I read it, because I was extremely wanderlust and I really wanted to go on vacation. But anyways, those are all the books that I have read in the last couple months. I still have some books that I haven't talked about, so maybe I'll save it for a different video. I know this one's a long video, so hopefully you guys really enjoyed it. Thank you for watching my videos, and I'll see you guys again next time in a new one. Bye.